Okay. Ahem. All right. Sorry, a minute or two late there. I went through my whole procedure and forgot to hit go live or whatever it's called. And as a result, I was sitting there like a dummy, wondering why isn't it showing up and why isn't it live and, stuff like that. But hey, such is life, or such is live, as the case may be. Good evening. I'm Tad. I'm reading. I will be reading, and I'm not reading at the moment. This is strictly improvised, but I will be reading in just a matter of moments. And so, hello, good evening. Lovely to have you with me. It may not be evening for all of you. It's definitely evening here. It's just gone dark outside in Northern California. And so seems like evening to me. And anything else to relate? Anything of interest? I was really fumbling for stuff last night because, of course, for most of us are kind of sickened and fixated on the news coming from Eastern Europe. But beyond that, really not a lot to say. I've got a whole bunch of work stuff on my desk at the moment, which I am chipping away at as best I can in bits and pieces, which include things having to do with both the third volume, Into the Narrow Dark, and the fourth volume, and then some other stuff as well, which doesn't bear talking about. And, all the normal domestic alarms and confusions that come from having a house full of people and animals and things like that. Not a whole lot to tell, really. I'm trying to think about if there's anything. I've just been, as I think I posted online somewhere, I've been kind of doing a lot of complicated thinking stuff because I've been having a lot of wrist problems the last few weeks in particular, and which makes it hard to type. So up until the last few days when I've had to type, I have been doing a lot of the mental work that always has to be done with these kinds of big stories. There's a huge amount of weaving things together and pulling something out and putting another strand in and seeing how that goes and if that fits and if that connects the things you need to connect. And if it doesn't, you pull it out and you try another one. And then you suddenly think, well, what if I had the first strand in, but instead of the fourth strand or the fifth strand, I put this one in instead and connected those two up. And so there's a great deal. This is just me talking about me. I don't know how other writers do it, but there's a great deal of thinking about, well, kind of basically playing, doing thought experiments of, what if this, what if that? And it requires a fairly good knowledge of your own work, obviously, because you have to be able to hold a couple of dozen possibilities in your head at the same time and move them around and try them in different ways and see not only if they fit right there where you're putting them, but if they make sense with what you've already established and if they get you closer toward your goal of how the story is supposed to end, or at least how you think the story is supposed to end, because everything is negotiable when you're working on these things. I try not to kill off too many main characters, just as a matter of policy. And it actually is a policy, in the sense that while I appreciate the shock value of killing off a protagonist or two, there are often times, especially with these really long stories, where you've brought the reader along so far and invested them so far that you are really making a definitive statement about life and the untrustworthiness of life if you kill off one of your main characters, which is why, by the way, spoiler alert, I really admired what George did in the first volume of Game of Thrones. That said, I'm not as likely to do that for a number of reasons, and part of them are purely philosophical, as I mentioned. My feeling is that there's a kind of a contract between the writers of certain kinds of fiction, genre fiction. And one of the contracts is that, especially for a really, really long story, there has to be some kind of resolution, and not an entirely negative resolution of many and most of the things that come up in the story. So enough characters have to die off or have things happen to them that the reader never fully trusts anything And that is also an important part of the process. But there's also, the problem that if you get too ham-handed with killing people off, at a certain point the reader starts to shy away. So it's an odd and interesting tightrope to walk. Anyway, before I start reading, let me just check in and see who is here and say hello. So, top of the list tonight is Ray. Hello, good evening, Ray. Greetings to you too. Becca, good evening. Good to see you. Kristen, hello. Hello again, indeed. Barban, hello. Hi, Barban says her aunt, her mom's sister, is 101 tomorrow. Wow, that's amazing. Please wish her happy birthday for me, even though she doesn't know me from Adam. My two grandmothers, one of them made it to 97 and the other made it to 99, but none of them has ever made it past 100. And at the rate I'm going, I don't think I'm going to break that record either. But that's wonderful. So good for her. I hope her quality of life is still excellent. And so thank you for sharing that with us. Wouter, hello, hello. Okay, good, excellent. I'm glad to see you. You are always welcome to join us. So glad you could make it. Claudia, hello. Good evening. James, howdly doodly Tatarinos, he says. Yes, he does indeed. I actually have a deep and abiding love for Ned Flanders. I don't know how anybody couldn't have a deep and abiding love for what Ned Flanders, one of the great characters in the history of television, in my mind. Anyway, winter waves from sunny Wellington. Oh, lovely. Well, that's right. It's only what, autumn in Wellington right now, isn't it? Middle autumn, sort of. Anyway, so I'm glad to hear it's sunny. Autumn is the nicest time of the year here in Northern California. Of course, we've just been through it, but it's almost always nice. It's very mild, but you get sun. It's all good. Steve, hello, Steve. Good to see you. Kelly, so Facebook doesn't notify us that you are live. Oh, that may have just been because I was like a minute late. Because as I said, I went, oh, yeah, okay. And I went off and started doing the things that I do to start the broadcast and then realized I'd never hit the go live button. So I don't know what happened with that, but that may be something to do with it. Anyway, Jeremy. Jeremy was sleeping during last night's reading. Well, shame on you. What a shocking thing to be doing at 1 o'clock in the morning. Shame, shame. Tim, good evening. Yes, I hope everybody is dealing with the world and coping with the world as best they can. So I certainly am trying. Emily, hello. Good to see you. Jennifer, hello, hello. Having a great day. Yeah, I mean, under the circumstances, I mean, there's a lot of weird and depressing news around. And, many of us, we all feel very frustrated that there's not more we can do for others right now. But it was still a good day. I have no complaints. I'm up, I'm moving around. My family is well. So yeah, no complaints. Kristen says she turns it on when she hears the ting on the iPhone. I hear tinging on my iPhone all the time, but I think it's largely hallucinations brought on by tiny brain. Anyway, so anything else? Not really much to talk about. I apologize. I wish I had more news to hand out of any shape or kind, but I don't. So I'm just going to jump in and start reading. We have been through a stretch where Rini and Kabu went to Treehouse, which is this sort of free hacker area of the net that is kind of kept separate from everybody else. It's very much a, no holds barred. You can do and be whatever you want to. It's kept on distributed servers, so it can't be easily shut down. And Rini and Kabu went and I wanted to say they met Martine de Rubin, their newest sort of confidant and helper, except they, of course, didn't meet her. All they met was a very basic simulation of her, but she kind of conducted them around and is still conducting them around. And they have just found the hacker that they were looking for, Blue Dog Anchorite, otherwise known as Murat Sagar Singh. After that point, we went back to Orlando, who found himself being recruited by a university with the idea that they don't know what we now are beginning to learn, which is that Orlando is actually a very sick young man indeed. but they were offering to sponsor his not sponsor, but give him I've just gone blank on the word, a free ride through college if he agrees to work with their company for 3 years. Scholarship, thank you. And so that gave Orlando an idea. And because he also wants to get into Treehouse, his story and Rini's and Kabu's story are completely separate. So they're coming to this opinion at the same time through completely different routes. They both of them want to get into Treehouse. Rini and Kabu already have with the help of Martine de Rubin. And now we're going to find out what Orlando's plan is. That has been touched off by this call from a recruiter. And that's where we are. I understood you the first time. You don't have to say it again. I just don't believe you. Fredericks folded his arms in front of his chest like an aggrieved child. What don't you understand? What don't you believe? That the people who made the Griffin have connections to Treehouse? Orlando was trying to curb his temper. Being impatient with Fredericks never made anything happen any faster. He had a stubborn streak as wide as his simulated shoulders. I believe that, okay, but I can't believe you actually think you can get in there. That's utter fen-fen, Gardner. Oh, man. Orlando moved himself into Frederick's line of sight, blocking off the Cretaceous swamp window at which his friend had been sullenly staring. Look, I don't think. I know. I've been trying to explain. This engineer at Indigo Gear, that, by the way, is the company that has recruited him for a potential scholarship. This engineer at Indigo Gear is going to get me in. Get us in, if you want to come along. Into Treehouse? Some guy you've never met is going to slip a couple kids into Treehouse just for fun? Shoot me again, Gardner. I'm still breathing. Okay, not just for fun. I told them that I'd sign their sponsorship agreement if someone could get me into Treehouse for a day. Frederick sat up. You what? Orlando, this is too far, Scanny. You signed up to go to work for some gear company for half your life just to find out who made that stupid Griffin? It's not half my life. It's 3 years. And it's a pretty good deal anyway. He didn't tell Fredericks about his private disbelief that he would ever serve that sentence. Come on, Frederico, even if I have lost my mind. It's Treehouse. You're not going to turn down the chance to go there, are you? To see it? You don't have to work for Indigo. His friend looked at him carefully, as though hoping to see through the sim to the real person beneath. A futile hope. Orlando wondered briefly if there was something bad for your brain about having years-long friendships with people you'd never met in the real world. I'm worried about you, Gardner. You're taking this much too seriously. First you get Thargor killed, then you blow your chances with the Table of Judgment, and now you've, sold your soul to some corporation. And it's all because of this city you saw for about 5 seconds. Are you going mental or something? Orlando paused on the verge of saying something sarcastic. Instead, he found himself wondering if Fredericks might be right. And the mere fact of wondering, the momentary loss of certainty, brought a stab of cold fear. The word was dementia, and he had seen it in more than a few medical articles. Gardner? Shut up for a second, Fredericks. He tested the fear, felt its clammy extent. Could his friend be right? Then again, did it matter? If he was losing his mind, did it matter if he made a fool of himself? All he knew was that when he had seen the city, it had made him feel that there was something left to wonder about in a life that was otherwise full of dreadful certainties. And in his dreams, the city had taken on an even greater significance. It was the exact size, shape, and color of hope itself, something he had never thought he would see again, and that was more important than anything. I guess you'll just have to trust me, Frederick's old chum. His friend sat silently for some time. Okay, he said at last. But I'm not going to break any laws. No one's asking you to break the law. Treehouse isn't illegal, really. Well, maybe it is. I'm not sure. But remember, we're both minors. The guy who's taking us is an adult. If anyone gets in trouble, it'll be him. Frederick shook his head. You're so stupid, Gardino. Why? Because if this guy is willing to break the law to get you to sign up for Indigo, they must really want you. Geez, you probably could have gotten them to give you a private jet or something. Orlando laughed. Frederico, you are one of a kind. Yeah? All the more reason not to get wiped out on one of your stupid excursions, Gardner. You're not going to wear that sim, are you? Detox, Fredericks. Of course I'm going to wear it. He flexed Thargor's leather vambraced arm. I know it better than my own body. Oh, yeah, he thought. I wish. But it's Treehouse. Shouldn't you wear something, I don't know, more interesting? Orlando glowered, something the Thargor sim did very well. It's not a costume party. And if the people in Treehouse had been hacking forever, they probably wouldn't be very impressed by some fancy sim. I just want to get the job done. Frederick shrugged. I'm certainly not going to wear anything that someone might recognize. We might get in trouble. This is illegal, Orlando. Sure. Like, there are a bunch of people hanging around in Treehouse who are going to say, look, isn't that Pithlet, the famous slightly nervous person from the middle country sim world? Get locked. I'm just not taking any chances. Fredericks paused for a moment. Orlando felt sure he was doing the online equivalent of looking at himself in the mirror, studying his specs. I mean, this is just an ordinary body. Still pretty muscle-bound, as usual. Fredericks didn't respond, and Orlando wondered for a moment if he'd hurt his friend's feelings. Fredericks could turn sensitive pretty quickly. So, you ready? He asked. I still don't get it. This guy is just going to send us there? We don't have to do anything? Basically. He wants to stay in the background, I think. Elaine Strassman, this recruiter, wouldn't tell me his name or anything. Just said, you will be contacted, all spy flick. And then he rang up, calling himself Scotty. Blacked out visual, distorted voice. Said he'd go up the ladder, whatever that means, and then when he was in, bring us aboard as guests. He doesn't want us to know anything about him. Fredericks frowned. That doesn't sound good. How do we know he'll really do it? Oh, and instead, what? He'll just whip up some little simulation that will fool us into thinking we're in the most chiz-major bandit outposts in the history of the net? Come on, Frederico. Okay. I just wish he'd hurry up and do it. Fredericks floated to the MBC display and stared balefully at the Martian diggers. Orlando opened a data window and checked to make sure that he had all the information straight on the various handles and company names linked to the Watch Griffin. But he was just killing time. There wasn't really any need there wasn't really any need to memorize. Even if Treehouse's security gear prevented him from connecting directly to his own database, there were other methods he could use to move information back and forth. He had been planning all evening. Now, if his mother and father would just leave him alone. He had gone up to his room early on the pretext of feeling tired after the appointment with Dr. Van. His parents hadn't resisted much. It was pretty obvious that Vivian wanted a little private time with Conrad to discuss what the doctor had said. It was 10 o'clock now. Vivian might come in to check on him before she went to bed, but he didn't think he'd have too much trouble pretending to be asleep, and he should be able to hide the new T-Jack with his pillow. Then he should have at least another 7 hours, which should be plenty of time. He looked up at Fredericks, who was still peering worriedly at the MBC window, as though he were a mother hen and the little digger robots were straying chicks. Orlando smiled. Hey, Frederico, this could take hours. Are you going to have any problem with that? I mean, at home? Fredericks shook his head. Nah, they're coming back late from some party on the other side of the complex. Fredericks's family lived in the West Virginia hills. Both parents worked for the government, something to do with urban planning. Fredericks didn't talk about them much. You know, I never asked you where the name Pithlet came from. His friend gave him a sour look. No, you didn't. Where does Thargor come from? A book? This kid I used to go to school with, his father had all these old books, paper. One had a picture on the cover of this Ho Ying guy with a sword. It was called Thangor or something like that. I just changed a little bit when I first started out in the middle country. Now, how about Pithlet? I don't remember. He didn't say it like it was the truth. Orlando shrugged. You couldn't drag something out of Fredericks with a tractor by arguing with him. But if you let it alone, it would come out all by itself eventually. It was one of the things Orlando had learned about him. It was strange to think how long he'd known him. For a pure net friendship, it had lasted a long time. The doorway of Orlando's electronic hideaway blinked. Who's there? He asked. Scotty. The distorted voice certainly sounded the same, and it was no easier to copy a distortion pattern than an actual voice. Enter. The naked sim that appeared in the middle of the room was very basic. The face only dots for eyes and a slit for mouth. The eggshell white body was covered head to foot with tattoo-like calibration marks. Apparently, a typical engineer, Scotty, hadn't bothered to change out of whatever he was wearing before going out. You kids ready? He asked, slurring and crackling like an ancient recording. Give me your handles. You don't need indexes, but you need designations. Fredericks was staring at the test sim with a mixture of distrust and fascination. Are you really going to take us to Treehouse? I don't know what you are talking about. But shut up, Scanmaster. Orlando shook his head. Fredericks ought to know better than to expect this guy to admit to something illegal while visiting a stranger's node. I'm Thargor. Yeah, I'll bet you are. Scotty turned to Fredericks. You? I don't know. James, I guess. Beautiful. You set up a blind link so you can follow me, like I told you. Beautiful. Here we go. There was an instant of darkness, then the world went mad. Oh my God, said Fredericks. Jang! This is unbelievable. It's the net, Jim, said Scotty, but not as we know it. His laugh was a strange thing, full of wow and flutter. Never mind. Old joke. Orlando was silent, trying to make sense of Treehouse. Unlike the commercial spaces of the net, which had carefully enforced certain real-world rules, such as horizon and perspective, Treehouse seemed to have turned its collective back on petty Newtonian conventions. You're on your own, kids. Scotty raised an index finger that was ticked with red markings. The system will spit you out at 1600 GMT, about 10 hours from now. If you want to go before then, you shouldn't have any problem. But if you drop offline and then change your mind, I won't be around to get you back. Got it. In ordinary circumstances, Orlando would have chafed at the engineer's patronizing older brother tone, but at the moment he was too busy watching a wave of distortion ripple across the structures just in front of him, leaving changed colors and malformed designs in its wake. And if you want to get in trouble, then if you get in trouble and want to mention my name, go ahead. It won't do you any good, though, because that's not the handle I use here. Geez, this guy thought he was real funny. So, are we not supposed to be here or something? No, you're guests. You have as many rights as any other guest. If you want to know what those are, you can check the central index. But this place is caca for organization. You might still be looking for the rules when your time runs out. See ya? He curled the upraised finger and vanished. As Orlando watched, a blue diesel truck made of what appeared to be twigs and branches, sped out from between two structures and rumbled through the area Scotty had just vacated. Its blatting horn was loud even by treehouse standards, and made them both jump, but though it passed within inches of them, there was no wind, no vibration. It turned a corner and headed uphill at an angle, climbing across open air toward another cluster of building-ish things hanging overhead. "Well, Frederico," said Orlando, "here we are." Within the first few hours, they had received several invitations to join discussion groups, several more to attend demonstrations of new gear, which, under ordinary circumstances, Orlando would have been happy to accept, and 2 proposals of group marriage. What they did not get was any closer to having their questions about Griffin manufacture answered. "This index is impacted utterly," said Fredericks. They had found a comparatively quiet backwater and were staring at a data window which resolutely refused to give them useful information. "You can't find anything." "No, it's perfectly good gear. Great gear, even. The problem is no one updates it. Or rather, they do, but it's all haphazard. There's tons of data here, terabytes of it, but it's like someone tore the pages out of a million paper books and dumped them in a pile. There's no way of knowing where anything is. We need an agent." Frederick loosed a theatrical groan. "Not Beelzebub, anything but that. Get locked. I can't use him anyway. Treehouse is sealed off from the rest of the net, and Scotty kept us from seeing how we got here. Beasel's in my system. I could talk to him if I wanted to, or send him out to check other net databases, but I can't get him into this system." "So we're scorched?" "I don't know. I think we may just have to ask around. One of the natives might be able to help." "That's perfect, Gardino. What are we going to do, offer to marry them if they do us a favor?" "Could be. I thought that turtle woman was kind of your style." "Get locked." A sequence of musical tones intruded above the muffled clamor. Orlando turned to see a whirling yellow tornado hanging in the air behind them. The tones repeated in ascending scale, a questioning sound. Orlando wasn't quite sure of treehouse etiquette. Can we help you?" "English," said a voice. It was high-pitched and slightly metallic. "No, we help you." "What is it?" asked Fredericks worriedly. Orlando waved at him to detox. "That would be nice. We're new here, guests. We're trying to get some information. Find some people?" The yellow tornado slowed its spin, resolving itself into a cloud of yellow monkeys, each no longer than a finger. "We try. Like to help. We are wicked tribe." One of the monkeys floated closer, pointing at itself with a tiny hand. "Me Zuni. Other wicked tribe. Kaspar, Ngogo, Masa, Suela." Zuni went on to name a dozen more. Each monkey waved and pointed to itself in turn, then returned to spinning mid-air shenanigans. "Who are you?" asked Orlando, laughing. "You're kids, aren't you? Little kids?" "No, not little kids," said Zuni seriously. "We are wicked tribe. Culture Club #1. "Zuni says that because she is youngest," said one of the other monkeys. Orlando thought it might have been the one named Kaspar, but they were all identical, so it was hard to tell. His English, though accented, was very good. "We are Culture Club," Kaspar went on. "When you are 10 years, we kick you out." "No wrinkles in wicked tribe," shouted one of the other monkeys, and they began to spin in a circle around Orlando and Fredericks, laughing. "Wicked tribe! Mejor club! Ruling tribe!" they sang. Orlando lifted his hands slowly for fear of hitting one. He knew the tiny bodies were only Sims, but he didn't want to offend them. "Could you help us find some people? We're strangers here and we're having trouble." Zuni peeled off from the group and hovered before his nose. "We help you. Tribe know all things, all places." Even Fredericks had to grin. "Saved by the flying monkeys," he said. In fact, the wicked tribe did indeed prove helpful. Children seemed to be indulged in Treehouse, allowed to go more or less wherever they wanted. Orlando guessed it was because privacy was so easily attainable here that if someone remained visible to other folk, then he, she, or it truly wanted to be part of the community. The tribe seemed to know most of the hundreds of treehouse residents who crossed their path in the first couple of hours. Orlando was enjoying the experience and repeatedly found himself wishing he had the leisure for a real conversation, even if none of his new acquaintances could provide the information he sought. I could hang out here all the time, he thought. How come I've never been here before? Why didn't anybody ever bring me? He balanced this sliver of resentment against the knowledge that one of the things that seemed to make the treehouse community work was that it was only a pool at the edge of the great ocean of the net. The anarchic lack of structure only worked because it kept itself exclusive. So what did that mean? That you couldn't trust most people not to ruin something? He wasn't sure. Led on by the wicked tribe, they were introduced to the variety of treehouse in greater detail. For longer than they had intended to, they watched a group of candy soldiers fighting a massive battle on a plain of marzipan. Cannons fired marshmallows against the battlements of a taffy castle. Sticky little men flailed and fought across fudge swamps and barbed wire made from cotton candy. In the exertion of battle, chocolate pikes and bayonets melted and drooped. The monkeys themselves participated gleefully, flying over the battlefield and dropping lifesavers to soldiers drowning in the fudge pits. Zuni told the visitors that the battle had been going on for a week. Orlando reluctantly dragged Fredericks away. The monkeys took them to many corners of Treehouse. Most of the inhabitants were friendly, but few seemed interested in answering their particular questions, although they continued to receive other sorts of suggestions. A living breakfast even offered to help them rethink their entire approach Simwise, and urged them to accept its help toward a complete makeover of what the breakfast called their rather unfortunate presentation. It seemed surprised when Orlando politely declined. I think you'll want to sit in on one of the programming discussion groups. The speaker was a European-accented woman and more than usually understated Sim. In fact, except for a few giveaway indications, such as overly smooth rendering and a certain indefinable stiffness of movement, she looked very much like a person you might meet in real life, perhaps at one of his parents' parties. The wicked tribe called her Starlight, although Orlando also heard one of them refer to her as Auntie Frida. She was making weather over a large stretch of virtual landscape, moving clouds, adjusting wind velocity. Orlando couldn't decide if it was art or an experiment. That would give you a chance to ask around, she continued. You could comb through the accounts of previous discussions, but there must be thousands of hours of that stuff, and to tell you the truth, the search engine is kind of slow. Discussion? Said one of the monkeys, buzzing beside Orlando's ear like a mosquito. Boring. Talk, talk, talk. Boring, boring, boring. The wicked tribe whirled into another spontaneous dance. Actually, that sounds like a good idea, Orlando told her. Thanks. Will anyone mind? Fredericks asked. I mean, if we ask questions? Mind? No, I shouldn't think so. The woman seemed surprised by the idea. It might be a good idea to wait until they've finished with their other business. Or, if you're in a hurry, I suppose you could ask the discussion leader to let you put your questions before they get started. That would be great. Just don't get into any arguments with the real crazies. At best, it's a waste of time. And don't believe about 90% of what you hear. They were never as dangerous and cool as they'll tell you they were. Don't go! Zuni's tinny voice swooped past. We find fun games instead. But this is what we came for, Orlando explained. After a few moments of mid-air colloquy, the wicked tribe formed themselves into hovering monkey letters, clutching each other to spell out the word Borring. We're sorry. We'll need some help afterward, probably. We come fine then, said Zuni. Now fly and make noise. The tribe contracted into a small yellow cumulonimbus. Ruling tribe! Hee! Mejor prime monkeys! Wicked, wicked, wicked! Like a swarm of bees, they circled Orlando and the others, then vanished through a gap in treehouses, higgle-piggle geometry. The club kids are a lot of fun if you're not trying to concentrate, Starlight said, smiling. I'll tell you where to go. Thank you. Orlando did his best to make his Thargor face return the smile. You've been a lot of help. I just remember, that's all, she said. Do you understand any of this? Frederick Sim was frowning, a not particularly subtle creasing, like a lump of bread dough being folded in half. A little. Proprioception. I've done some work with that stuff in school. That's where all the input, tactors, visual, audio, works together to make you feel like you're really in the place you're supposed to be in. There's a lot of brain science in it. They were sitting in the highest row of seats, far away from the center of the discussion, although every voice was still perfectly audible. The amphitheater, Orlando guessed, was supposed to be like something from ancient Greece or Rome, all pale stone, attractively weathered. The greater chaos of Treehouse was not visible here. The amphitheater sat beneath its own bowl of blue sky. A dim, reddish sun crouched low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the benches. The shadows of the discussion's participants were more or less humanoid. The 4 or 5 dozen engineers and programmers, like the mystery man who had brought Orlando and Fredericks to Treehouse in the first place, didn't seem quite as interested in personal adornment as the rest of the place's inhabitants. Most wore very basic Sims, no more lifelike than test dummies. Others did not bother to wear Sims at all and were only distinguishable as physically present by small points of light or simple iconic objects indicating their position. Not all were so boringly functional. A giant gleaming bird made of golden wire, a plaid Eiffel Tower, and 3 small dogs dressed in Santa Claus suits were among the most vociferous debaters. Orlando was fascinated by the conversation, although he found them difficult to understand. This was high-level programming, as discussed by a highly unorthodox group of hackers, mixed up with Treehouse security issues and general systems operation for the whole renegade node. It was a little like listening to someone argue existential philosophy in a language you'd only studied in junior high school. But this is where I belong, he thought. This is what I want to do. He felt a swift stab of morning that his apprenticeship with Indigo Gear and return visits to Treehouse were both so unlikely to happen. God, Fredericks groaned. This is like a student government meeting. Can't we just ask them some questions and get out of here? Even the flying monkey midgets were more interesting than this. I'm learning things. Yeah, but not about what we need to know. Come on, Gardner, we only have a couple of hours left, and I'm going crazy. Fredericks abruptly stood up and waved one of his Sim's stocky arms as though hailing a cab. Excuse me! Excuse me! The discussion group turned toward the source of the disruption with the uniformity of a flock of swallows banking against the wind. The Eiffel Tower, which had been explaining something controversial about visual information protocols, stopped and glared, inasmuch as a large plaid building could glare. In any case, it did not look like a happy building. Okay, Frederick said. I got their attention. Go ahead and ask them. Orlando's well-honed Thargor reflexes urged him to brain Fredericks with a heavy object. Instead, he rose to his feet, conscious for the first time of how teenage the Thargor body looked. I'm sorry my friend interrupted, he said. We're guests, and our time is running out, and we had some questions we needed answered, and someone sent us to this meeting. One of the points of light glittered angrily. Who the hell are you? Just a couple of guys. You're doing great, Gardino, Fredericks offered helpfully. Shut up. He took a breath and began again. We just wanted to find out about some gear, some software. We heard that the people who worked on it hung out here. There was a low hum of irritation from the group of programmers. We do not wish to be interrupted, said someone with a distinctly Germanic accent. One of the more rudimentary Sims stood up, extending its hands as though to quiet the crowd. Just tell us what you want, it said. The voice might have been female. Well, some gear that eventually wound up in a creature in the middle country sim world. The creature was a red griffin, to be specific. Is listed on all the InPro databases as being authored by someone called Melchior. There was a brief but muted reaction as though the name were familiar. Orlando went on, heartened. From what we can learn, he or she hangs out here, so we'd like some help finding Melchior? The basic sim that had quieted the crowd stood motionless for a moment, then lifted a hand and made a gesture. The world suddenly went black. Orlando could see nothing, hear nothing, as though he had been abruptly flung into the vacuum of starless space. He tried to reach up to see what had blocked his vision, but his sim would not respond to his thoughts. You may be a guest here longer than you meant to be, a voice murmured in Orlando's ear, a distinctly menacing voice. You and your friend have just made a really, really stupid mistake. Sealed in darkness, Orlando raged. We were so close! So close! With a growing sense of having lost more than an opportunity, he pulled the ripcord and dumped them out of Treehouse. Chapter 23. Blue Dog Anchorite. Netfeed. Business. ANVAC posts record profits. Visual. ANVAC corporate headquarters. Featureless wall. Voiceover. ANVAC Security Corporation declared the highest business profit margin in 50 years. Zurich Exchange observers cite the ever-growing worldwide need for individual and corporate security, as well as ANVAC's groundbreaking line of smart biological weaponry, as reasons for the soaring profits. Visual, ANVAC Vice President, face and voice disguised. Vice President, we fill a need. The world is a dangerous place. Overkill? That's easy. Would you rather be morally right or alive? The Anchorite's cot, hacker slang for a virtual home away from home, was the least impressive Rini had ever seen. With all of virtuality's prizes to choose from, he had created a decidedly uninspiring setting. With its tiny bed, poor resolution wall screen, and miserable flowers in a plastic jug on an institutional table, it looked very much like an old man's room in a nursing home. It also had the same curious real-unreal quality as the Anchorite's own sim. Rini, tired and frustrated, wondered if this old man could be of any help to them at all. Do you want to sit down? Singh asked. I'll make chairs if you want some. God damn, I haven't had anybody in here for a long time. He lowered his sim onto the bed, which creaked convincingly, and Rini suddenly realized why both the old hacker and his room seemed so oddly lifelike. It was all real. He was using an actual real-time video of himself as a sim. The bed he was sitting on, the entire room was probably real as well, a projection turned into a functional VR environment. She was looking at the Anchorite's actual face and body as they looked at this very moment. He stared back at her, sneering. Yeah, you guessed it. I used to have the whole fancy kit. Good-looking sim, 40,000-gallon aquarium for an office, full of sharks and mermaids. But I got tired of it. The only friends I had all knew I was a useless old bastard. So who was I fooling? Rini was not particularly interested in Singh's philosophy. Did Susan Van Bleek ask you about a golden city? Sorry. Rini was not particularly interested in Singh's philosophy. Did Susan Van Bleek ask you about a golden city? And what did you mean when you told us it was too late? Don't hurry me, girl, the anchorite said crossly. Don't girl me. I need some answers, and soon. This isn't a locked room murder mystery. This is my life we're talking about. More importantly, my little brother's life. I think Mr. Singh is willing to speak to us, Rini. Oh, sorry. I think Mr. Singh is willing to speak to us, Rini. Martine's voice, simultaneously coming from everywhere and nowhere, might have been that of some offstage director. Rini did not like being directed. Martine, I'm tired of talking to the air. I'm sure this is terribly impolite, but would you put on a damn body so that we at least know where you are? After a long silent moment, a large flat rectangle appeared in the corner of the room. The painted face wore a famously mysterious half-smile. Is this acceptable? Asked the Mona Lisa. Rini nodded. There might be an element of mockery to Martine's choice, but at least now they all had something to look at. She turned back to the old man in the turban. You said too late. Too late for what? The old man cackled. You're a regular little Napoleon, aren't you? Or perhaps I should say a regular little Shaka Zulu. I'm 3/4 Xhosa. Get on with it, or are you afraid to talk to us? Singh laughed again. Afraid? I'm too bloody old to be afraid. My kids don't talk to me. My wife's dead. So what could they do to me except shove me off the mortal coil? They, said Rini. Who are they? The bastards who killed all my friends. The old man's smile vanished. And Susan's only the most recent. That's why it's too late. Because my friends are all gone. There's only me. He raised his hand and gestured at the unprepossessing room as if it were the last place on earth, and he the world's only survivor. Perhaps for Singh it was the last place on earth, Rini thought. She felt herself thawing a little, but she still wasn't sure whether she liked the old man or not. Look, we desperately need information. Was Susan right? Do you know anything about the city? One thing at a time, girl. I'll tell it in my own way. He spread his crooked fingers on the lap of his bathrobe. It started happening about a year ago. There were only a half-dozen of us left. Milani, Dierstrup, some others. You don't care about the names of old hackers, do you? Anyway, there were a half-dozen of us left. We'd all known each other for years. Como Milani and I both worked on some of the early revisions of Treehouse, and Fanny Dierstrup and I had been in school together. Feltan, Misra, and Sakata all worked at Telemorphics with me. Several of them were Treehouse regulars, but Dierstrup never joined. He thought we were a bunch of left-wing New Age idiots, and Sakata gave up her membership over a Rules Committee disagreement. We all stayed in touch, sort of. We had all lost friends. When you get to be my age, that's a fairly familiar pain. So we were probably a little closer than any of us had been in a while, just because the circle was getting smaller. Please, said the Mona Lisa, a question. You know these people from different places, no? So when you say a half-dozen of us, it is a half-dozen of what? Rini nodded. She had been looking for the connecting thread herself. Damn it, just hold your water. Singh scowled, but actually seemed to be enjoying the attention. I'm getting there. See, I didn't realize at the time that there were just 6 of us, because I didn't see the link. I had other friends, you know. I wasn't such a miserable bastard as all that. No, I didn't see or think about the connection until they started to die. Dierstrup went first. A stroke, as far as anyone knew. I was sad, but I didn't think anything of it. Fanny always drank a lot, and I'd heard he'd got fat. I figured he'd had a pretty good inning.
Next, Como Milani died, also a stroke. Then Sakata went, fell down the stairs of her house outside Niigata. It felt a little like a curse, losing 3 old comrades in a matter of months, but I had no reason to be suspicious. But Sakata had a gardener who took care of her property, and he swore that he saw 2 men dressed in dark clothes drive out of her front gate somewhere around the time she must have died. So all of a sudden, it didn't look so much like an old gear consultant having a simple accident. As far as I know, the Japanese authorities still haven't closed her case. Felton died a month later, keeled over in the London Underground. Heart failure. They had a memorial for him here at Founders Hill, but I was beginning to wonder. Vijay Misra called me. He'd been wondering too, but unlike me, he'd put 2 and 2 together and come up with a nice round number. See, some of the people like Deerstrup I'd known for so long. I'd forgotten that there was only one time when all of us, me and Misra and the 4 people who just died, had worked together. There'd been others working there too, but we 6 had been the last ones alive. And as Misra and I talked, we realized that we were the only 2 left. That wasn't a good feeling. Rini was leaning forward. Left from what? I'm getting there, girl. Don't shout at me. Rini was in danger of losing her composure. Look, I've been kicked out of my job, but I'm still using the school's equipment. Someone could call the police on me at any moment, for God's sake. Everywhere I go for information, I get a song and dance and a lot of mystery. Through the machineries of virtuality, she felt Kabu touch her arm, a homely reminder to stay calm. Well, Singh said, cheerful again, beggars can't be choosers, Gilly. Is this place secure? Martine asked suddenly. Like a soundproof bunker in the middle of the Sahara. Singh laughed, revealing a gap in his teeth. I should know. I wrote the security gear for this whole place. Even if there was a data tap on one of your lines, I'd know it. He laughed again, a quiet, self-satisfied wheeze. Now, you asked me to get on with it. Let me get on with it. Misra was a security specialist too, but it didn't do him any good. They got him as well. Suicide. A massive overdose of his anti-epilepsy medication. But I had just talked to him 2 nights before, and he wasn't depressed, wasn't in the least suicidal. Frightened, yes. We had realized that the odds against us were getting worse and worse. So, when he died, I knew for sure they were killing off everyone that knew anything about Otherland. Otherland? For the first time since Rini had met her, if that was the proper word, Martine sounded truly startled. What does this have to do with the Otherland? A squirming chill traveled Rini's spine. Why? What is it? The old man bobbed his head, pleased. Ah, now you're interested. Now you want to listen. We have been listening, Mr. Singh. Listening very carefully. Kabu spoke quietly, but with unusual force. Slow down, Rini demanded. What is this Otherland thing? It sounds like an amusement park. The painting rotated, the Mona Lisa's pale face swiveling toward her. It is, of a sort. Or so the rumors say. Otherland is even less known than Treehouse. It seems to be some kind of playground for the rich, a large-scale simulation. That is all I have heard. It is privately owned and kept very quiet, so there's little information available. She leaned back toward Singh. Please continue. He nodded as though receiving his due. We were contracted through Telemorphics South Africa. I was working for them then. This was nearly 30 years ago. Dierstrup actually managed the project, but he let me choose the people, which is why Meloni and the others were involved. We put together a security installation for what I thought was some kind of business network. Hush, hush, all very top secret, money no obstacle. Some huge corporate customer, that's all we knew. It was only as we worked at it that we found out it was actually a VR node, or rather, a string of VR nodes on parallel supercomputers, the biggest, most high-speed VR net anyone had ever seen. The consortium that owned it was called TGB. That's all we knew about them. They were TGB, we were TMX. He barked a laugh. Never trust people that like to call things by initials. That's my philosophy. It is now, anyway. I wish it had been then. Anyway, the TGB people, or at least some of their engineers, occasionally referred to this new network as the Otherland, like motherland, without an M. I think it was a joke, but I never saw the point. Milani and I and some of the others used to try to guess what it was going to be used for. We figured it was meant to be some kind of huge VR theme park, an online version of that Disney monstrosity, getting bigger every day over in Baja, California. But it seemed pretty high-powered even for that. Dierstrup kept telling us we were wasting our time, that we should just shut up and collect our admittedly substantial paychecks. But there was something really weird about the whole project. And when a decade or so had gone by after we'd finished, and there still hadn't been any announcement about it, we all pretty much admitted to ourselves that it wasn't a commercial property. I figured it was some kind of government thing. Telemorphics has always been really friendly with governments, especially the American one, of course. Wales has always known which side of his bread was buttered. So what was it then? Rini asked. And why would someone kill your friends to keep it secret? And more importantly to me, what does this have to do with my little brother? Susan Van Bleek talked to you, Mr. Singh. What did she say? I'm almost there. Hang on for a moment. The old man reached out for nothing visible. A moment later, a cup appeared in his hand. He took a long, shaky drink. The whole room's not live, he explained. Just me. That's better. He smacked his lips. Okay, now we come to your part of things. Susan had some luck researching that weird city of yours. The buildings had some odd little Aztec-type elements according to this architecture gear she used on it. Tiny details, things only an expat system could notice. So she started running searches on people who knew about such things, hoping to find someone who could maybe help her place your city. So why did she contact you? She didn't. Not until she ran across a name in her list of expats that she remembered me mentioning to her. So she called me up. Startled the hell out of me. I recognized the bastard's name that she'd turned up. All right. He was one of the TGB muckamucks. We had to answer to him when we were doing the security for this Otherland thing of ours. Bolivar Atasco. And that's where we're going to stop, because we're in mid-scene, and it will take a while before we find another good stopping place. So, but now the name Bolivar Atasco has surfaced. Anyway, so with that, I am going to wrap it up for the night. I thank you all very much for joining me. I will be back for this same time slot next Sunday at 7 p.m. and also at 1 a.m., of course, as usual. No plans likely to change in the nearish future. And as I said, before anything odd happens, we're going to at least get finished with the book. And we've got a good chunk left. So
And after that, I'll figure out what I'm going to do. Although, as I said, I'm sure I will continue to do broadcasting of some kind or another. Hello. There we are. Okay. Lost my focus there for a moment. Not my focus, the camera's focus. Anyway, so with that, I say thank you so much for joining me again. Be good to yourselves. Be good to the people around you. It's really the only thing that we can be absolutely certain that will improve the world is just kindness, being kind to those around us. That we know at least will do good. And that's a good goal to have, to do some good whenever you can. So, again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. You all be good to yourselves. Peace. Good night.